Drive tax is the hidden cost you pay in every single match. It's the drive gauge you're forced to spend, not because you want to, but because the opponent makes you. Some characters naturally collect this tax the moment the round starts, and if you don't recognize who's taxing you and win, you'll wonder why your gauge keeps vanishing while theirs is full. Let's break down drive tax in 3 easy steps, through the lens of the 3 big archetypes: grapplers, zoners, and rushdown. Each one has their own way of forcing you to pay up. The first one is grapplers. Grapplers have a fear tax. The moment they're close and you start feeling the urge to press, that's when the tax begins. You're spending meter on drive reversals, panic OD specials, and even drive impact just to avoid being grabbed and to keep them off you. Their tax starts out psychological, and the physical manifestation of the fear forces you to preemptively burn meter. I'll leave a link in the description box below if you want to learn more about how grapplers use your fear against you. The second one is zoners, and zoners have a frustration tax. They tax you at range. Fireballs, long limbs, chip damage, all of that pressures you into using your drive rush or drive parry just to close space. Their tax is built on frustration. The longer you're locked out, the more likely you are to overspend just to get a hold of them. The third archetype is rushdown. Rushdown characters have a panic tax. They tax you the second pressure starts. Every plus frame, every staggered string makes you want to drive reversal or burn OD moves just to breathe. Their tax is about panic, and they overwhelm your sense of control and force you to pay up with your gauge. Now that we understand what drive tax is, we understand what the archetypes are and who's taxing you, the point, as always, is to be able to use this information in your training. First thing you want to do is identify your archetype, and then you want to identify what their special tools are. So, for example, at round start facing Guile, you're expecting something very specific at the very start of the round, right? And what do we expect from Guile? We expect him to either throw a fireball, or he's going to back up and maybe get ready for flash kick. That is not something that he has shown you that he's going to do, but you've been conditioned to believe that that is how Guile players play because those are his stronger tools. If I'm playing Ryu, then I have the threat of the fireball, naturally. I also have the threat of Hashogeki when I'm close. My tax as Ryu is the threat of the fireball and them trying to avoid the fireball, especially when I have the charge available. And then I also have the threat of, when I'm close, Hashogeki. Now my opponent is trying to circumvent both of those mechanics. That usually means they have to spend a little bit of meter to get around that. So let's take Manon, for example, and this is a little bit deeper. Manon has a special tax in this game because her tax is progressive. At the start of the match, I'm not overly concerned with her damage as much as I am her building metal stacks. I'm spending meter to prevent her from building those stacks by avoiding command grabs. But then once she's at 5 stacks, now I'm extremely concerned about her ability to command grab me and take off a third of my health. So I'm spending meter to keep her away from me and stop her from building metal stacks at the start of the round. So it's kind of a twofold thing where it progressively builds into you spending more and more meter over time. So Bison has a very unique tax in this game as well. So Bison has a couple of tools that opponents are always trying to avoid, and thereby spending meter and or blocking, trying to parry, and sometimes getting thrown for it. The first one is scissors. Oftentimes I notice my opponents will try to avoid scissors by neutral jumping or backdashing certain things, but then they're also trying to oftentimes avoid what happens after heavy bomb, right? And so oftentimes they will mash on Bison's plus frames and they'll get punish counter thrown, or they will get obviously hit by the bomb for trying to prevent Bison from cashing out on it. Are you starting to understand what we mean when we say drive tax? Drive tax is not a fancy way to say meter management. If we wanted to do a video on meter management, we could do that. Drive tax is the layer that sits beneath meter management, and it's a little bit of a mind game as well that forces opponents' actions even when you haven't conditioned them to act this way. You can use this to your favor as it allows you to play a safer game and punish their fear of your tools and taxing them further rather than just showing them what your tools are and then playing this back and forth paper, rock, scissors game. So open Street Fighter 6, go to the main menu, go to your profile, and then at the very end, go to results. I'm using Overdrive Arts. Okay, so that's like OD SPD, OD Lariat. And then I'm using cancel into drive rush. So basically move and then canceling into drive rush. So stand light kick, canceling into drive rush, or crouching medium punch, cancel into drive rush. And then at the very bottom here, it says damage. I've been using my drive gauge for damage more so than drive impacts, more more so than drive parries. This is telling me exactly where I'm using my meter in the last 100 matches that I've had. Step 2 is to go into the main menu in Street Fighter 6, go to your profile, matches per character. So select whichever character is your main character, and then as you scroll down, it will show you where your weak spots are. So for me, it's Kimberly. From what it looks like, my highest win percentage is Dalsum. And then step 3 is to go into your past matches and find your matches versus, so for me, versus Kimberly, and then try to see where you're being taxed the most. If we look at Mai Shiranui, who's one of the newer characters to Street Fighter 6, Mai taxes you in a very unique way that forces you to play a different game with her. You are forced to play around her fan or her EX fan, and you are forced to either parry the fan, block the fan, or try to get around it, which is also risky. So that's tax in and of itself. Dalsum, as a zoner, also has a tax. You're forced to play around the limbs, block the limbs and take some chip damage no matter what, parry the limbs, and also risk maybe a teleport. And then once you're in, he has great mobility, so he can force you to pay the tax as well, trying to make contact with him. Remember that there's also a tax involved in stopping a chore character from building whatever their chore is. So for Jamie, it's building drinks. There's a tax involved in that as well, because if you choose to stop him from those drinks, you have to either pay with your meter. The same thing goes for Lily. So when Lily is building win stocks, you are forced to play around that, and you don't want her to get too many win stocks, but sometimes you don't really have a choice. That's also a tax that you have to choose whether or not you want to pay. So let her get win stocks or deny her the ability to build some of those stocks. So remember, the fix for this is awareness. Pick one matchup that you hate and identify who the tax collector is in that matchup and whatever element it is that forces your meter away from you. And then watch your replays and track when you're spending the most. Are you drive rushing out of frustration, reversing out of fear? Are you panicking under pressure? And then once you know where your weak spot is, you can decide, okay, is this tax worth paying, or is it better for me to hold my meter for my turn or a different scenario where I can cash out a lot bigger? Remember that drive tax isn't about never paying that tax, okay? It's impossible to do that. It's about playing smart. You don't want to go broke from using your meter on fear or frustration or panic. You want to spend wisely. If you like these types of videos, we can put more of these up on the channel. See you guys in the next one. Take care.